Thank you.
So those who are members here should have received the yellow candle in the mail or delivered to your door. It's part of the annual Holocaust program. And as most of you know, our beloved Lester Macklin was a big supporter of this. And I'd like Ellen to light the candle for us this evening. There she is. Hi, Ellen. Do you mind lighting the yellow candle for us, leading us in that?
Let me take some of this.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn.
Wait, we light these candles together in memory of all who were lost in the Shoah.
Thank you. I'm going to turn over to the rabbi, and he's going to lead us in the Kaddish. And I'm going to share the Kaddish that he is reading, the special one, which lists out the various camps.
And I would ask if everybody who is able to please rise as a matter of respect, if you're able. And you're going to screen share, John, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. I just lost my ability to do that. 1 minute. Okay. Sorry about that.
Not at all.
Can you see it?
Yes. Well, I am going to be reading the Hebrew, the Morning's Kaddish, and if you would, when I pause between each word, is to together speak the word of a particular concentration camp. Yikadal,
Auschwitz,
Yikadash,
Lodz,
Shemei Rabbah,
Ponar,
Yalmad Divrei Kirutei,
Babi Yar,
Yamlich Malhutei,
Meyedenek,
Chayechon of Yomechon,
Birkenau,
Uchayedechol Beit Yisrael,
Kovno,
Bagala Vizman Kariv,
Janowska,
Vimru, Amen. And together, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mivarach, V'olam Omer Amen. And I'll pick up again with the Hebrew. Yiparak V'yishtabach,
Tirsenstadt,
V'parer V'yitromam,
Buchenwald,
V'naseh V'yithadar,
Treblinka,
V'halal, V'halal,
Vilna,
Shemei Kudsha Barichu,
Bergen-Belsen,
Liela,
Mauthausen,
V'kol Berchata V'shirata,
Dachau,
Tishbachata V'nechemata,
Minsk,
Minsk,
Yamiran B'alma,
Warsaw,
V'imru,
Amen.
Yehei Shalom Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. May the one who brings peace to the heavens bring peace to all those, who are here with us this evening, to all the children of Israel, to all people of good faith, to bring blessing, healing, and comfort. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. So with that, Judy Altmann is a sprite 97-year-old. She was born in Jasina, Czechoslovakia, which was invaded by the Nazis in 1939. In 1944, she was arrested and transported to Auschwitz concentration camp with her niece, where they were selected for work. From there, she was sent to Essen and Jilz's Kirchen labor camps, where she remained until March of 1945. She survived the death march that ended in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Sick with typhus, she was barely alive when she was liberated by the British Army in 1945. And I'd like now to turn it over to Judy to tell us about her story. And I will, if you have questions at the end, we're going to allow time for questions. Please put them in the chat to me, and I will go through them and I'll ask her the questions when she is done. Thank you. Go ahead, Judy. You can.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for inviting me, because without the invitation, there would be no way for us to talk to young people and to everybody who wants to know what happened in the camps. It isn't a pleasant, it isn't a pleasant story, but it is very important for people to know. I come from Czechoslovakia, in a small town of 15,000 inhabitants, out of which a third was of Jewish religion. We had a wonderful life, absolutely. We had no anti-Semitism. You know, there is always a quiet anti-Semitism, but never of any kind. My father had a business, a general store. We dealt predominantly with non-Jewish people. It was absolutely without any problem. But unfortunately, that ended. When Hitler occupied Czechoslovakia, he said he only wants a small part, which was the Sudeten. It was a German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia. So they decided in England, in France, in America, they all said, well, we'll give it to him. He promised he's not going to go any farther. But he did not keep his promise, because in 1939, in March, 15th of March, he just walked into Prague, to the capital of Czechoslovakia, opened the window in the castle and said, well, we are here this is a protectorate. That means we are protecting it. From who? From where? Maybe he meant Russia, but Russia was not invading us or anything, any threats to that. Well, after the occupation, our life has changed drastically. I come from a family of 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters. Right after the occupation, every Jewish man was drafted to slave labor camp. They wore their own clothes and they did all the hard work ahead of the German army. So they cleared everything. Many of them died because they were prepared. There were mines there. Nobody told them of anything of that kind. And then the German army occupied Czechoslovakia. Right after the occupation, every business that a Jewish man owned was taken away. They could no longer work. All schools, Jewish students could no longer go to school. Anybody that had anything with the government was automatically sent home. Our life has changed completely. As I said, we were in a small town called Jasina. It was bordering Poland. My father owned a general store. The day that they arrived, they brought in a commissar, a Gentile man, and they gave him the store. The proceeds from the business was going to the government, and he got his pay. We could still stay in our house because our store was part of the house, but we had to live in the back of the store, not in the big apartment. but in the back of the apartment. But we were still together. Every man was taken to slave labor camp. They did the hard work. They went ahead and prepared for the roads for everything that they were going to occupy, which was the first country was they were going to go to Poland. Then they went to all other small countries. They had there was nobody there to fight back. We were in school and we were walking around before we were occupied. We were walking around with a sign on our front, "Nedame se," which means in Czech, we would not give in. But the minute the Germans walked in, we just gave it over immediately. We were very, very disappointed in our Czechoslovak army. Why didn't they even try to fight a bit? But they didn't. At my father's business, they put in a commissar, so my father could no longer go in either. We had a big house and we also had a farm. Besides the house, we also had a farm. So the first thing they gave out that everything that belongs, the farm belongs now to the Germans. They put in a commissar and he was living there. The store was taken away as well. The big house was also occupied by German officers. We had a little kitchen in the back, but we were still together with our parents. One of my brothers, one brother lived in Belgium with his wife and 2 children. When Belgium was occupied, the same thing happened to him, what happened in all the parts of of Europe. All of them were the same. My next brother in line, the only fortunate one, was fortunate to be in America. He came 1938 to America. I had one sister was married and she lived in Poland, which was not far, was actually 50 kilometers. She was married, she had 2 children, a 10-year-old boy and a 3-year-old little girl. But what happened in Poland was the worst. After the occupation, they took all the men one day and made them go out and outside in a little far from the town and made them dig mass graves. The following day, they took all the people from the smaller towns. In my sister's case, it was Mikulichin. She had a 10-year-old little boy, a 3-year-old little girl, and her husband. They came in the morning, they took all the Jewish people and made them go out of town, made them get undressed, and made them stand close to the open graves and shut them into the grave. And we were still on our Czech side. And when my mother was able to send some food to my sister Charlotte, the peasant came back and he said, "I regret Mrs. Borochana very much. I could not deliver the food to Charlotte, but I witnessed her execution." It was just unbelievable. They shut the entire town. In fact, one Jewish man, happened to be close to the border of Czechoslovakia, and he came in. And he came and told us what happened in Mikulichin. And it happened like that in all the towns in Poland. But we were still home on the Czech side, which was, of course, now it was the Germans were there. We had absolutely no right. At 5:30 in the evening, a Jewish person couldn't be outside. We children could no longer go to school. we came to school one day and they said, no, you have to go home. There is no school for Jewish children. And they were just open without any, and the people, anybody that had any power, the soldiers or so, wherever they saw a Jew with a beard, they beat him up. And my father had a little beard as well, so he had to be hidden. They also occupied our big house. There was an officer, and he called me. He said, "Why are you going up on the roof every day? I am being disturbed with the noise." I said, "Because my father is up there, and your soldiers would kill him." He says, "As long as I am in this house, nobody will touch your father." But he stayed only 2 days. He was, because Yasina was right on the border from Poland. It says, while they were there, nothing will happen to your father. But he left. And after that, of course, we had to keep him away to begin with. As it is, it was very, very hard, but we were still together with our family. We did not, we would try to hide my father. Every young man was taken away to slave labor camp. They were doing the very hard work before the soldiers are marching into whatever country they occupied. Young people could not go to school. So what they did, they used teenagers, I was one of them at that time, and to do things wherever they could get without any pay, to do any pay, which was in a way good, because what those teenagers do, they can't go to school, they can't do anything else. Again, but we were still home together. I remember it was the last day of Passover, and my mother said, "It is so sad. We usually put away the dishes on the last day." And she said, "No, let's not do it. I want to be together with Papa and you, and we should just sit and enjoy and wait and wait what's going to happen." Sure enough, she had a premonition. The following morning at 6:30 in the morning, uh, 2 SS men and 2 Hungarian gendarmes, because Hungarians, after the Czechs moved out, the Hungarians moved in, and they were Nazis as well. So they came, knocked on the window. "You have a half hour. Take all your money and take all your jewels and come." Of course, we took some, whatever money we had handy, and we started moving. We walked. That was my father, my mother, and myself, because the rest of the family, they were all married already. So we lived 6 kilometers, 4 miles from the town. And as we walked to town, they picked up all the Jews that they told them to be ready in a half hour. So by the time we came to town, there was a lot of people, but nobody. There was Easter Sunday, and the Christian people were going to church. Nobody asked a question when they see the police with a gun on each side of the Jewish people. We walked in a row of 5, said anything. "Where are you taking these people? They are our neighbors. Nobody said a word. And we came into town. After we came to town, we were told to go up to the cemetery. So my father said, "How convenient. They're going to kill us there, and they wouldn't even have to bury us." That didn't happen. We were up on that cemetery for a whole week. Within that 1 week, they said one person can go home and bring all the money and all the jewels. And so my father did not want to go, my mother either. So I went home. At that point, everything was already taken from our house and from the store. Everything was gone. But of course, we had more money. So when I came back to the cemetery where the ghetto was, a ghetto without shelter, without anything, we were just sitting on the graves. It was snowing, it was cold. We were there one whole week. After a week, we were told to go to the railroad. All we have on ourselves is whatever we wore at home and a coat, nothing else. It was bitter cold. It was still snowing in very bad weather. But we walked to the railroad, and there we were put into a train, a regular train, to a next town. We were a few weeks there, all in about 16 to 17 families in one apartment. And we were waiting. After a few days, we were going again to a next town again. And there also, young people were cleaning and trying to cook some soup for whatever they could, whatever we had, some potatoes that they gave us, and we cooked some soup. That's all we had. No dish, nothing of our own except our clothes that we wore. Then after another few days, we were told to take the train again, and we took a train to a place where Mate Soko, that was Hungary. There we were living already about 30 families in a house. One cramped another on another. If somebody died, we were sitting on the body. It was just terrible. But still, we were together with our father and mother. Until one morning, that was the 17th of May, we were told to go to the railroad. We all went together with my parents and my mother's sister with her 3 little children. And we came and we were riding in a train for 4 days. We have no idea where we are going. We are just in a terrible, I'll show you what. In cattle cars, just in cattle cars. While we are home, every Jew had to wear the Star of David, one on the sleeve and one on the back. So where you walked, you were seen that you are a Jew. When we walked in all the groups, people were seeing us, and they said, nobody said anything. Where are you taking these guys? After the occupation, every Jew had to wear the Star of David in the front and in the back. That's the back. Well, here, whatever country you were in, it was written like this is French, or in our case, it says Žid or Židovka. That's what to know. Just they should know who we are. Here, the army was going, the police were going there with all ahead of time wherever we were. From there in Mate Soko, we were there 6 weeks. After that, one morning, we were told to go to the railroad. This time, they put us into cattle cars. 70 to 80 people in one cattle car. There is only one little window where air could come in. They closed it with an iron bar, and we started moving. it was 4.5 bitter, horrible, horrible days. There was hardly any air. People were dying. So those that died, we were able to sit on their body. Children were screaming they wanted water. There was no water. Maybe some people had a little bottle of something, so they get to people, to children. It was just unbelievable, those 4.5 days. It was the 21st of May. We arrived in a place and
I'm sorry, you have to unmute yourself.
Judy, you're still muted, or we're not hearing you.
Yeah, she's muted. She was muted. I think she's muted by accident. And there you go. You're good now.
can you hear me now?
Now we
Yes.
can hear you. Now
Yes.
we can hear you, yes.
That was our fault. Don't worry, keep on going. Sorry about that.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so here it was about 3.5 days before we were put into a train and we were going. The trains were impossible. You couldn't breathe and all that. Many people died, but finally we arrived to a destination. We don't know where we are. The doors open and we see men running around in a blue uniform with white stripes. And they are going, running and helping, saying, throw out the people, those that cannot walk, just throw them out down the ladder. There was a ladder to those who could still walk down. And they told us, line up a row of 5, women separate and men separate. So there is my mother, my sister, my aunt, me, and my niece, and my aunt's 3 little children in front of us. Then there is the men's row. It was my father, my brother-in-law, my uncle, my nephew, and another man stand in line. And they say, line up. And these were enormous, enormous lines. All we see is German officers walking back and forth, but they don't do anything. Only Jewish men in a blue and white uniform, pants and a jacket, and lines and lines of people. So they say, line up, women separate and men separate. So there is my mother, my sister-in-law, my aunt, myself, my niece, and another person. And then there is the men's row, my father, my brother-in-law, my nephew, my uncle, and another man. And we wait online and wait and wait till we come close, and there are a German officer. There is a very tall man that we stand in front. He is in that German uniform with the shiny boots and a rubber stick in his hand. This is Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the angel of death because to come in front of him, he was to determine who shall live and who shall die. He came to our row. He put my mother to go to the left, my sister, who was a young woman still, she was about 42, go to the left, my niece and me go to the right, and so we go this to the right and they go to the left. We go to the right and they go to their death. After they walked away and the selection was done, We were told to go to undress completely and sit down. They cut our hair completely bald and they gave us a piece of soap. And we stand in front of a door where it says bath. In our case, it was water coming down. In our parents' case, it was gas. After when we went through that, we came in, we went into a shower. When we came out of the shower, we were given a gray dress. Who did he pick? The oldest person that they picked couldn't be older than about 32 years old. She had to be healthy looking and young because Hitler said, if the war ends at 12 o'clock, at 11:55, he will have time to kill the rest of us. He just needs people to work while we are there. And afterwards, he has no need for Jewish people at all. So now only my niece and I were picked to this side. So we stood in line till about 4 in the afternoon, waiting there just in a gray dress, a short sleeve. It was, Auschwitz can be very chilly without the sun, and at the sun it could be very hot. And yes, we were fortunate to get shoes. When the shoes ran out, you just walk barefoot. Now we stand in line till late in the afternoon. And the only thing we hold on is we have each other now, my niece, Ida, and myself. So we were told to start moving. We walked a 1 hour we were now in Auschwitz, but we are walking to Birkenau. We come to an enormous building, a brick building, and we were told to go in there. There were there was boards like that to sleep. That was a bed, supposed to be a bed. So we got 10 or 12 people in each of these cubby holes. And there we supposed to sit down. We got nothing to eat that day. In the morning, that's Auschwitz. You're being woken up in the morning at 5 in the morning. You go out to stand in roll call, 5 people in a row. And you stand there for hours. Every day, Dr. Joseph Mengele comes and looks at the people. He looks at the face. If somebody looks pale, he'll take them and put them on the other side, which nobody ever sees again. Of course, they cut our hair, so we had no hair, and we just cold in the dress, because when the sun isn't out, it's very cold in that one dress. All day long, we get nothing till late in the afternoon. We haven't got a spoon, we have nothing. So you get a pot of soup, which was made of turnip. So they said, everybody, one person takes a sip and give it to the next one until everybody has one sip. If there is any soup left, you start from beginning. Once a week, you get a 4-inch piece of bread, very thin. You could eat it up in a minute, but you do not, because you hold it out just in case, because some people were fainting from hunger. So you hold it out until you cannot take the hunger. Every single day, Mengele comes. If he sees anybody with a pimple, he'll take them out, and they are not to be seen again. They were sent into the gas chamber immediately. And we knew that they were telling us, we asked them, where are we? What is this? This is hell. Don't expect anything but death. We were there 6 weeks in Auschwitz. It was just the most horrible way, terrible hunger and terrible, the smell. The smell at night from burning human beings was unbelievable. We asked the girls that were there already longer. They said, what is that horrible smell? They said, these are your parents burning. It was, they just said, and we said, how could you be so mean? And said, it's not mean, my parents were there and they burned. You have to know where you are. We were there 6 weeks. Fortunately, they needed some work. So when we came back, yes, the hygiene was good. Once a week, you got a shower. So at least you were clean. You have no hair, lucky, but anyway, you get a shower. And you get a clean dress. You have no underwear, nothing, just a gray dress. Anyway, after 6 weeks, we were told that there is going to be an inspection and people are going to be picked. So we were hoping to go to something better will happen. So after the inspection, they picked healthy looking people. If you were short and you do not look healthy enough, then you were not picked. So we were picked, we were taken away in a separate row. Then from there, we did not go back to the barrack anymore, but we were put in on a train and we were going, we don't know, nobody talks to us at all, only SS men and SS women, and more women than men. So we were put into a train. We are now in Auschwitz, so we were going a whole day and a part of the next day as well. And then we got out of the train and we were walking 1 hour and we were now in Gelsenkirchen, West Germany. We came to a place where there were tents and we were put into those tents. Those that were in the beginning of the row, they were fortunate because they were able to sleep on a straw sack. But those that were laid at the end of the row, they just slept on the floor. But we were out of Auschwitz. What a wonderful thing. You weren't ready to be taken to the gas chamber any minute. So the following morning, we were taken, we were lined up in a row of 5 and we were walking. We don't know where we are going. So now we were taken to the town of Gelsenkirchen. There we were put into a factory and there were German supervisors and they told us, you're going to carry heavy rocks from one place to another. Another group was working, building a house. So at least we were outside, we were not inside waiting to be beaten or whatever. So after a day's work, when we work day shift and night shift, all day or all night. When we came home, we come back to the camp, we were given a bowl. At this point, we already had a bowl and a spoon. So we were given a soup that was wonderful, that we had already something to eat. If there was some days, once a week, we got a 4-inch square of bread. You could eat it up in a minute, but you hold on to it just in case when you're going to be faint and you cannot stand it anymore. So between my niece, Ida, and me, we were saving a piece of bread, but you had to hold on to it because it was stolen. not out of people that were kleptomaniac. They were just as hungry as we all were. So there we were walking eating with a little, while we were working, we got a little bit more food. We got a slice of bread for breakfast and a slice of thin bread for lunch. And in the evening, a bowl of soup, or in the morning, day shift or night shift. We were there 10, uh, uh, 8 or 10 months, working very hard, but we were out of Auschwitz. That itself was a wonderful feeling. Of course, many of the girls were dying. They couldn't do it. They couldn't continue in this regiment, but that's what it was. And at one day they said we must go because the Allies were coming closer. It was in West Germany, Essen, and all that, very near. So we already heard the fighting and the guns. So we said we have to go. That was the death march. It was literally a death march because we were so emaciated and so starved and hungry that people just lie down and wanted to die. But what was the worst? When there was a mother and daughter, and one could still walk, but the other one was dying. The one that was still alive and could have, we had to drag her away from the dying one or the dead one. It was a horrible feeling to do. Anyway, now we are marching and we are walking weeks, about 2.5 weeks, with hunger, with impossible. Sometimes as we walked, a German person would throw us a piece of bread. And if we found it, they gave us one piece of bread in every evening and a little bit of soup. That's about all. Most of us didn't have any more. The shoes were torn. So we actually walked barefoot. It was unbelievably difficult. But finally, we arrive. It is a very green lawn. And we said, oh, this looks beautiful. What is that? This was supposed to be Bergen-Belsen. But the minute we crossed that beautiful green lawn, we came to Bergen-Belsen, which was the worst camp you can imagine. There were dead bodies everywhere on the floor. Some were still breathing a little, but most of them in another few minutes, they were dying, they were dead. It was just, we were there, I was there 3 weeks. And I remember I was lying there and I was really already sick, very sick. I couldn't even if I could have any food, I wouldn't have been able to eat it. My niece is gone. I don't even know where she is, whether she is alive. So I lie there and I am so sick already, and I can't even, I hear an English word. I said, now I really am dying because, and I hear an English word said, no, you are free. We are British. We are we are alive. You are alive. We are going to help you. You're going to get better. We are here to save you. So at that point, I passed out completely, and I woke up several weeks later in a clean hospital in Bergen-Belsen. There I saw, at this point, British soldiers in their uniform, and they said, you will be wonderful, you'll be healthy, we'll feed you, and you'll gain your weight. We were skin and bone. We were just unbelievably skinny. These were the koyas, these were the place where we slept, these empty board things, board beds. This is where I was 14, bed 14. Oh. This is the crematorium. They had the small ones for children and the big ones for the adults. These are the barracks in Auschwitz. I don't know whether can you see them? Can you see them?
Yeah, we can see them.
Yes. And this is the entrance of Auschwitz. These are the children's crematorium. This is my friend, and we were in this in this bed, so to speak, 14. Here's again the crematorium. Here the gas cans, and that's my friend that survived as well. And this is the way we looked when we were liberated, just skin and bone.
Judy, you wanted me to tell you when you had 5 minutes.
I'm sorry?
You wanted me to let you know when there was 5 minutes.
Oh my
For you.
God,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. There is just no words to explain the agony and the condition that we were. There were days when we said, dear God, we cannot take it anymore. And we did pray. With all the things many students asked me, did you still believe in God? And I said, there were days where we questioned, but then there were days, oh dear God, give me one more day. We literally prayed from day to day. Maybe that we'll make it. And fortunately, thank God I made it. It took 1 whole year to cure me. We were many thousands of Häftlinge were taken to Sweden. I was in Sweden 3 years. I was 1 whole year in a hospital, in and out, because I just was very sick. Fortunately enough, with God's help, I made it, and subsequently came to the United States. I had a grandmother here, and I had uncles and aunts. And I decided, if God give me years, I am going to tell the world what hate and discrimination can do. And in what people, when I come to the schools and tell the students, honor your youth in your freedom, because this is the most wonderful thing that any human being can have, is freedom. And thank God that we have it now, and we have a country of our own. We have Israel, and we have a wonderful country of the United States, which I love and adore. And I thank you for all the schools and all the people that invite us, because there are people that say, oh, of course, I don't think that they are of Jewish religion, but they say, oh, this is not true. They invented that. They didn't, it wasn't that bad. I lost 24 members of my family when we arrived in Auschwitz. But we people that survive, we appreciate life so much better, and we appreciate everything that freedom offers us. And I thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope that you have many questions that I will be very glad to answer.
Thank you, Judy. This is just a wonderful that you take the time to do this. and there's no words to describe what what you just told us, but I do have questions coming through. So let me ask a few of them. So one of them is, can you describe what you felt when the British soldiers, when you heard them say you're free now? You talk a little bit more about that. I know you were very sick when it happened.
It was an unbelievable feeling. Because we never thought, the Germans said, when the war ends at 12, he has time to kill us 5 minutes to 12. So we never thought that we will even be able to. In fact, I was in Bergen-Belsen. So he had one barrack full of poisoned bread, sliced bread. It was all poison. So his orders was, if he loses the war, that before the Germans leave the soldiers will leave the camp, give every Häftling, every prisoner a slice of bread. He wants the enemy to find bodies, not human beings. So when we survived, and I woke up in a bed with a white sheet, I couldn't believe it. There was a British soldier, and I said, and I spoke the language. I said, "Is this true? I must be dreaming." No, the Captain Paul his name was Paul, and he says, "No, you are not dreaming. It's true." And it was unbelievable. Wow. And then years later, he came to the United States, and I spoke to him.
Oh, wow.
I'm so grateful.
Now, you had originally said that your brother was in the United States. So was he there when you finally made it to the United States? Was your brother still in the US?
No, my brother Bernard came here in 1933 already, because I had a grandmother here and uncles and aunts, and every human being wants to come to America. So he was fortunate to get an affidavit, and he came here. In fact, he was just married when I came, and so I had one brother. I had uncles, 2 uncles and 2 aunts, and a grandmother here. So
Okay.
when I came here, I was already not alone.
Okay,
And
that's great.
American people were wonderful.
I don't know if you would remember a name from back then, but one of the people on, his name is Art Fisher. He said his mother's name was Laura Ackerman, and she lived nearby to where you were in Utzerhad. And her itinerary was similar to what you described. She was deported on Passover. She went to Auschwitz, and then finally in Sweden. Do you recall meeting any person by that name?
Does she know what town in Sweden she was?
Art, you can come off mute, or you can chat if you know where she was in Sweden.
In Göteborg, or in Stockholm, or in Helsingborg. There was so many. In every city, the Swedish people were helping, were curing the Häftlinge. That's what they call it, the survivors.
Well, she originally was from Ukharov, which was pretty close to where you were. Pretty big city. Near the.
She was in the camp of Buchenwald.
No, she was Ukharov. Ukharov, which is now in Ukraine.
Oh,
but it was in Czechoslovakia. It's not far from where you are,
Oh.
were. And secondly,
there were so many people you wouldn't know anyway. Maybe the first name, but not the last name.
Right. And in Sweden, I did know the city. I don't have it. They put them up at some sort of castle for a while in Sweden.
Yeah, I was in Göteborg in Sweden.
She might have been in Göteborg.
I was 3 years there. I learned the language, and I got a job because I was teaching them German and Czech, and I learned the language, Swedish language.
We do have a question from someone. Said at the beginning of your talk, you mentioned about a child, someone who stole paper and made some art and started to write a diary. They were wondering, did anybody write poetry? Do you remember anybody writing the poetry or documenting what had happened through either poetry or prayers back then?
Yes, more songs than poetry. There was some girls that were poet, they come, but I don't know. They had to learn by heart because we had no pencil or paper. We had nothing at all. So she remembered. Yes, songs. They composed songs. I don't know how much time there was. Brezhinka dort. That's where the gas chamber was. Das ist auf einmal ein Jiddisch Ort, wer es kommt, verbleibt schon dort, verbleibt auf immer dort.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
understand it.
Now, there are some people who know Yiddish who will get that, but that was wonderful that you recalled that. Now, did your niece survive? Did you find her? Did she survive?
Yes, she survived. And at the end, I said, Ida, I am not going back to Czechoslovakia. I have people in America. I'm going to wait till my quota comes. She said, I am going back home because my brother, her brother was 2 years older. So he was by that time 18. And I want to go home. Hopefully I'll meet him. Well, he was killed one day before liberation.
Oh, no.
And
So,
she survived. Subsequently, she moved to Israel, and she died. She was the same age as I, so she died 2 years ago. She had children, 2 children, a son and a daughter. And if we were friends, but no longer. Everybody was a sister we were only women. Every Häftling, everybody that survived was a sister. We did not call each other different, but sister.
interesting.
Because we didn't know whether we have anybody alive.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. Now, this question is, when you talked to your brother, finally talked to your brother, or when you came back and met him, did you ask him, did he know what was going on over in Europe during the war? Did he know when he was in the US what was going on over there?
Well, yes, I tell you why. When we were in Gelsenkirchen, in Bergen-Belsen, there was an American businessman who was a friend of my uncle, who was he was exporting stuff to Europe. So he came into the hospital and he says, is there anybody of the name Bohorochaner? I said, yes, that's me. And he says, well, I am doing business with your Uncle Schnabel and in America, and he wants me to give you money to buy some good food and get healthy. And then I got in touch with my uncle and my aunt. I had 2 aunts here and 2 uncles. One died since, and of course, to have family in the United States, it was an extra gift when you are liberated. Except, I'll tell you a little funny thing. At this point, the one girl was there, and she had a sister, and she sent her a package right away, the first day. And her name was Margie. So when she opened the package, there was so much good food in raisins and candy and honey cake. Oh my God, we didn't forget what that even could look like. So I said, so one girl asked, are you going to give us a taste? No, I will not. I said, after all that, you still don't want to share anything.
Oh, that's a funny story.
Freedom is something that nobody can cherish it as much as we do.
Of course. Now, obviously, your memory is unbelievable at 97 and have gone through this and remembered everything. So someone's asked if your memories of the terrible experience have softened at all. They changed over time, how vivid they are, or how they feel to you emotionally, or you can still remember them as if you were there?
Yes, indeed. It made an in-depth in your memory and in your thinking. But then you say to yourself, I did make it. He didn't make it. Hitler didn't make it, but we made it. And we utilize our, that's what I tell to all my friends who brood over it. But look, but I lost, but look at me. I said, but you're here. You're alive. So thank God for that. And that is so important. And we treasure more everything that we do. If material things don't bother as much as you had it before, because we had it, and you can lose it, God forbid. But do good, whatever you can do good vis-a-vis other people.
Wow, well, that's very inspiring and a lesson for everyone on this call. A new question just came in. What is the one deep and lasting effect that your experience has had in your life? Maybe you just answered that with what you said, but I don't know if there's something else you may want to add to that.
What is the most important thing is honor your relatives that you have now, because you see what can happen. You can lose them and with no anything. So appreciate that, because you know it means so much more to you as family. Family is the most precious thing. And having my niece with me, it was a wonderful. I watched over her, she watched over me.
How old were you again and how old was she when you both originally went to?
I was
Yes.
21.
21. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? I think I've gone through all the ones that I've seen so far. If not, I just want to thank you so much for your passion and for the story you told us. And there's a lot of lessons there, both on cherishing every day and be thankful we have, and getting closer to our families, because we don't want to take those for granted. Those are very important lessons that we all need to have. Rabbi, I don't know if there's anything else you want to close with.
Yeah, well, I just feel that, as you said, family is the most important thing, because things you can lose at no time, but family you cannot replace at all. So
True.
that is so important. And so, as I said, my niece was, I would have done anything for her, and she for me.
John, I just want to thank you for being such a good host and everything. And Judith, one thing that you also taught us, I think, again, is to echo the words of Elie Wiesel of never again, and that we all be vigilant to make sure it doesn't happen to the Jewish people or to any other people on this earth, that we take care of each other. So thank you again.
You're very welcome. But again, they said very often, they ask me when I speak in so many schools, they say, after what you went through, do you still belong? Do you still want to stay in your own religion? I said, definitely. I don't want to go away, because God did help me. I am here. So I feel that I am grateful to be a Jewish person and be here and be alive.
Once again, Judy, thank you so much. And for everyone, so Judy belongs with the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center out of White Plains, New York. Please check them out. If you enjoy this, you can make a donation to that organization or to our congregation, so we can continue to have events like this. Once again, Judy, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much for you, and God give you long life and good health.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening.
Very powerful.
Thank you.